welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel, brought to you by Red Heart Yarns. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make the Granny's Jewel Scarf. Isn't this cute? This combines two wonderful Red Heart yarns, Red Heart Soft and Red Heart Unforgettable, to create these wonderful stained glass looking granny squares. Now these granny squares are really simple. They're all the exact same square, but by switching up the placement of the colors, you get this really great look. So all you need to do is learn how to make this one square and then make it in the designated amounts and color combinations. Add a little bit of fringe and you've got this really great scarf, right? This is the perfect My First with Marley Bird project, don't you think? What do you need for this project? Well, you're gonna go ahead and download the free pattern over on redheart.com. Don't worry about searching for it. The link is right down there in the video notes. And while you're down there, smash that like button. Let everybody know that you enjoy these My First with Marley Bird videos. Once you have your pattern, you'll see on there a materials list. Go ahead and gather the materials for this project, and then we can move forward and learn how to make this wonderful motif. When my crocheter was making the sample, she fell in love with this scarf because of all the color changes. And what's really great is the color changes are made, one, because we're changing colors of yarn in the Red Heart Soft, but two, the Unforgettable yarn has natural long color changes. So it gives the look that you're doing even a lot more work with the scarf than you really are. So if we look down here, these are just two examples of two of the colorways you will be making. And you can see that each one starts with a different color at the center, but the square itself is the same. We will begin here in the center and then work our way out in the round to this particular round. And then as we get to the second to the last round, that's when we begin to build our square. Let's go ahead and jump in. Remember, I said each square is made the same, but the color combinations are different. I will follow the square number 2 for this example. I begin with color B, which is grape, and I begin with a slip knot. I put the tail of the yarn in the palm of my hand, take my working yarn, wrap it around my forefinger and middle finger. When I come back up, I cross over. Rotate my hand over, go underneath the first loop and grab the back loop, and off, and I have a slip knot. Place that slip knot directly onto your hook and chain 5. To chain 5, you simply take your hook, go around your yarn just like so, and then pull that yarn through the slip knot. That's one chain. Remember, your slip knot never counts as a stitch. So I need to have 5 chains. There's 2, 3, 4, 5. And as I'm working along, you'll notice that every time I made my chain, I made sure that it went up here to this portion of my hook, because that's the portion that determines the size of my stitch. So to make sure that my stitches don't get too tight, I just make sure that they're all that size. Once you chain 5, you will join with the slip stitch to the first stitch to form a ring. So over here is my first stitch. I just bring it around, stick my hook right in there, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull that loop through. Once you've joined to form the ring, it's time to build the motif. You will chain 3, 1, 2, 3. That chain 3 counts as a double crochet here and throughout. Now I will do 11 double crochet all into this join, where in this whole ring. So I yarn over my hook, go into the ring, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over my hook, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. Yarn over my hook, go into the ring, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over my hook, draw through 2, yarn over my hook, draw through 2. I want to make sure I do that 11 times. So I've done it twice. Let's go ahead and get our 11. I'm to my 11th stitch and it's time to join. So I will count 3 chains from my turning chain, go into that third chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull that loop through the loop on my hook, and I will finish off. So I yarn over one more time, take my scissors, and I leave a nice tail so I have room to tuck it in. So I always leave 4 to 6 inches and then pull that through and give it a tug. So there is my first portion. It's time to build my next round on this round I just completed. The instructions say I'm supposed to grab my next color, which happens to be D, which is my Unforgettable, and I like to begin with a slip knot once again on my hook. So I'm going to put a slip knot on my hook, and now the instructions say to pull up a loop between any one of these double crochets. So I will go between these double crochets, yarn over, pull up a loop, and I'm just going to draw through. So I've joined with a slip stitch, okay? I will chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Remember that counts as a double crochet. And then I will place a double crochet into that same space. So I've yarned over my hook, go into that same space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. Now, one thing I want you to notice is this unforgettable yarn is a Craft Yarn Council number 4, just like the Red Heart Soft, but it works up a little bit looser. And that's okay, as long as your stitch gauge is getting the same as the first stitch gauge that we got, it will all work out okay. And the best way to maintain that is to make sure that your stitches are always going up to this portion of your hook, so that way they're all the same size. Once you've finished your double crochet, you will chain 1, and then you will do 2 double crochets in the next space. So between the next 2 double crochets, you'll do 2 more double crochets. Yarn over and do 2 double crochets. Chain 1. We will do this all the way around, putting 2 double crochets between each double crochet of round 1. When you get to the end of the round, simply join with the slip stitch into the 3rd chain of your turning chain. Go into the 3rd chain of your turning chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull that through the loop on your hook, do 1 last chain, and we'll snip our yarn and finish off. Round 2 is now complete, and you can see we still have a circle, which is fantastic. It's time to move on to round 3. My next color is color C, which is my teal color. So I'll pull that in. And as I mentioned, I like to always have a slip knot on my hook before I join in. So I will do that. And we have to pull up a loop, which I'm going to call join with the slip stitch, into any chain 1 space. So I pulled up a loop, and I'm just going to join with my slip stitch. Now I'll begin with the chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Remember that counts as a double crochet. And I will place 2 more double crochets into this same space. So there's 1 and 2. Then I chain 1 and I move to the next chain 1 space, and I will put 3 double crochets into that space. The stitch repeat for this entire round is 3 double crochets in the chain 1 space, chain 1. So once you've done that all the way around, you'll join with the slip stitch to the 3rd chain of the turning chain, just like you've done before, and then finish off, and we'll move on to round 4. I'm to the end of my round 3, and I will join with my slip stitch to my turning chain. There's my slip stitch and finish off. Now we're ready to move on to the next round, which is virtually identical to what we just completed. The difference is that we will do 2 chains between each 3 double crochet section. Go ahead and grab your next color, and we will join just like we started before and jump in. My next color is my color D. So I'm back to my unforgettable yarn, and I'm beginning with my slip knot just like I like to do. And I will join in the chain 1 space with my slip stitch and jump into my pattern, which is chain 3. And then I will place 2 double crochets into that same space. Remember to be consistent and make sure that your stitches are the same gauge as all of your previous rows. And that is the same for every single round. You want to make sure that all of your stitches are all coming out to be the same, that one round isn't tighter than the next. I chained 2 and I jumped over to the next chain 1 space, and I am doing 3 double crochets, chain 2, go to the next chain 1 space and do 3 double crochets. I will do this all the way around to the end of the round, and then I will join and be ready for round 5. I finished round 4, and it's time to jump into round 5, and this is where we begin to build the corners of our square. As you look down here, you can see I have a really great circle motif happening, but I want corners. I want this to be a square so that I can join it for a scarf. To do that, we're going to jump into the next part of our instructions. So grab your next color. For me, it's going to be color B, and I'm going to once again begin with the slip knot on my hook. It's just one of those things I prefer to start that way, so I like to start with that. And I begin with a slip stitch into any chain 2 space. Once I get that slip stitch into any chain 2 space, I will chain 3, and I will do 3 double crochets into the same space. So 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, 4 double crochets in the next chain 2 space. 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 1. Now you'll notice this next part of the instructions have a parentheses. What that means is everything that's inside those parentheses we are going to put into the next chain 2 space. Here we go. We've done our chain 1. We will place 2 double crochets. So there's 1, 2. We will do 2 trebles, so you yarn over your hook twice, go into that same space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. We have to do that again, so yarn over our hook twice, go into that same space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. Once you've got your trebles, we'll chain 2, and we do 2 more trebles. So you yarn over your hook twice, go into the same space. All of this is going into the same space. This is building our corner, and we do that one more time. We finish this off with 2 double crochets, still in the same space because our parentheses have not closed yet, but now they have. There's our corner. See, if I set this down, we have a corner getting made right there. Sweet. All right, so now the next part, we chain 1, put 4 double crochets in the next chain 2 space. Essentially, we're going to work our way over to the next corner. 2, 3, so that's 4 double crochets, and I will do that one more time. So I chain 1, go into the next chain 2 space, and I'll put 4 double crochets. You'll notice in the pattern that there were brackets there, and that let you know that everything in that bracket you would do a number of times that's listed past the bracket. So it said chain 1, 4 double crochets, end the bracket, and then twice. So we just did that twice. So in our next chain 2 space, we will build a corner again. So we will chain 1, do 2 doubles. So there's 1 double, 2 double, 2 trebles, so yarn over our hook twice, and I'm doing all of this into the same space. So there's 1 treble, and there's another treble, chain 1. Actually, I think I chain 2, so there's chain 2, I apologize, and then I do another 2 trebles. I have a knot in my yarn. Don't get a knot in my yarn. That's what happens when the yarn kind of works up on itself, right? There we go. Okay. Woo! Close call. So let's do our treble here. Any of you Pitch Perfect fans? We're troublemakers. These are the jokes, people. And as I make a joke, I mess up. So let's do our second treble. And then we will do 2 doubles. So there's 1 and 2. So that is our second corner. Go ahead and continue on like this. I think you've got this. We're going to put so we'll do a chain 1. We'll do 4 doubles and a chain 1 in the next chain 2 space. And then we'll do 4 doubles and a chain 1 in the next chain 2 space. And then we'll build a corner again. Do that all the way around until you're back to where we began. I'm at the end of my round. I will join with the slip stitch into the 3rd chain of the turning chain, just like I've been doing all along. Snip my yarn, finish off. Let's set this down and take a look at what we have. You can see here what was once just a circle is now becoming a square because of our corners that we completed. We have one more round to build our corner, and then we have a round of just single crochets. And the round of single crochets will really make it easy to join all of the squares together. So let's move on to round 6. My round 6 begins with my color A, which happens to be the green. So I will start off with my slip knot once again directly on my hook. And let's jump in. So round 2, it says with right side facing, join your color with the slip stitch to any chain 2 space. So here's my chain 2 space. I will join my color right here. There we are. Once you've joined with your slip stitch, the instructions say that we will begin doing single crochets, and you will be skipping some stitches and putting single crochets in others. So make sure you pay attention as you go along. The instructions state that once you've added your slip stitch, you will skip 1 stitch and you will do a single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3. Single crochet in the next chain 1 space. And then you'll do all of that 3 times. So we have to go to our bracket. It says skip a stitch. So we skip a stitch, single crochet in the next stitch. So that was 3 of them, and then single crochet in the chain 1 space. Skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and then single crochet in the chain 1 space. So that was 3 times, counting the first one we completed, and it's time to move on in the instructions. We'll skip a stitch, single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and then we will put 3 single crochets in this corner. So 1, 2, 3. And then it says repeat from star. So we go and we find the star. It says skip next stitch. So there's our skip next stitch. Do a single crochet in the next 3 stitches. 2, 3, single crochet in our chain 1 space. And then it says repeat that 3 times. So that was our once. We'll do that 2 more times. So skip, single crochet in the next 3, and then 1 in the chain 1. Skip, single crochet in the next 3, and in the chain 1. Then we are skip, single crochet in the next 3, 3 single crochets in the chain 2 corner. 2, 3, turn our work and repeat. So skip, single crochet in the next 3, and 1 in the chain 1 space. I'm going to continue on all the way to the end of this round. I'm to my last repeat here of the round, so I will do my single crochets in these 3 stitches, and I'm here to where I began with my slip stitch. So I will do 3 single crochets all into this chain 2 space. I finish it off by joining to the first single crochet with a slip stitch, and I will not finish off. I'm not finishing off because the next round uses this same color, and we're going to do single crochets on top of all of these stitches we just completed, and we're also going to put a multiple of single crochets in the corners to maintain our corner stitches. Let me show you what I mean. I begin with the chain 1, and I will put a single crochet into each stitch down this row until I get to the 3 single crochets at the corner. Let me get to that point. As I get down here to the 3 single crochets I did in the corner, I want to place 2 single crochets into each one of those 1 single crochets. So I'm just putting 2 single crochets into each one of the 3 that I put in the corner. Once I've done that, it allows this corner to make a nice curve. I rotate my work and I continue on doing single crochets till I get to the next 3 single crochets in the next corner, where once again I will do 2 single crochets into each stitch. At the end of this round, I will have a total of 84 single crochets. At the end of the round, you will join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet and then fasten it off. As I set this down, you can see that what was once a circle is now a square. Now let's talk a little bit about this square, because you can see that it is rather large and it's a little bit flimsy, which is good because you don't want a scarf that's going to be super stiff. But the important thing here is that you make all of your squares the same size. So gauge is not really critical to this project, but if you want to make sure that you have enough yarn to complete the full project, you want to try and get a gauge the same that the designer Heather Ladinsky made. made. So I know right now that my square that I just finished is too large, and I'm going to show you how I know. One, I'm bringing over one of the squares that was completed for the actual scarf, and you can see it's significantly smaller than this one. If your squares came out a little bit bigger than the intended 6.5 by 6.5, you can always go ahead and go down a hook size and make your squares using a different hook size. It's okay. That's part of getting gauge. If you don't mind the larger size square, or maybe you're just a smaller square and you like the smaller square, as long as all of your squares are the same size, that's what's most important. Now, after you finish your square, it's important that you weave in your tails. And I would not wait to the very end to do this because, who wants to weave in tails at the very end? So what I like to do is after I finish one square, I will weave in the tails right then. So let me show you how I recommend doing that. I will turn my work over to the wrong side, and you can see I have all my tails here where I did my color changes. And I will grab my bent tip tapestry needle, and I like to use these steel bent tip tapestry needles, which are available on redheart.com. You can click over there, and I will also put a link to it down in the video notes. But simply take one of your tails, you will thread it onto the tapestry needle right through that eye of the needle. And then what I like to do is I will come up here and I will work the tail through the stitches going one direction. All right. Going one direction. And then I will go back that opposite direction, working the tails in. You'll notice I have my hand on the other side to make sure my needle is never popping through to the right side of my work. And then once I go through the other direction, I have a choice. I can go back one more time, or I could go down this direction, down one of the posts of the stitches. And I think for this particular color, I'd be all right going back one more time. And this time, I'm not only just going to go back, but I'm going to try and work my needle through the yarn itself. So I'm splitting the yarn just because I want it to kind of grab onto itself. Once I pull it back, that's not going anywhere. I can go ahead, take my needle, my scissors, and snip that nice and tight. I could do the same with all of the other colors as well. I would just grab the next color in line, thread it onto my needle, and then go on. Now this one, I'm right here at this really big corner, so I have all those really nice purple stitches that I can weave right in, right? So I'm just going right through all of those stitches. My needle's not going through the other side, which is great. And I pull it through. It's like, oh, that's awesome. What's great here is that it's woven, or it's tucked in, right? This is just like if you were to have crocheted over your tail. So you can't just leave it like this, because eventually this tail is going to work its way back through there. You have to go that extra step and weave it in a little bit further. So what I will do is I'll come down here and I'm going to snag it through the same color of the yarn that I'm tucking in, and I'll go back the opposite direction, very similar to what I just did with the purple above. So I'm going back, and see, by snagging that color right there, or the yarn, is going to stop it from coming all the way. So there's that much, and I still don't feel like that's quite strong enough. So for this one, why don't we go ahead and I'm going to grab this again, and I will split through this one. And when I come back, I'm not going to go the whole way. I'm just going to go a little bit. And then I will split the yarn itself, coming back the opposite direction, and try and get that to grab on, just so that it's all in there nice and secure. I feel like that's pretty nice and tight, and I would go ahead and snip my yarn. You would want to weave in your tails for all of this square just like that. So you'll weave in all of your tails, make sure it's all woven in nice and tight, because you don't want your tails to come loose as you're wearing your scarf, right? That would be not pretty. So after your tails are tucked in, you go ahead and you move on to the next square. Now let's talk a little bit about this pattern. This pattern has 4 squares listed. Now that does not mean that these are 4 different squares in the sense of how they're made. They're all made just the same. They're all made just like square number 1. But each square has a different color sequence. So you will want to pay attention to when you're supposed to use color A, B, C, or D. And you will make 3 squares of square number 1, 3 of square number 2, 3 of square number 3, and 2 of square number 4. Once all of your squares are completed and all of the ends are tucked in, lay them out in the order you want them to be joined. Once all of your squares are laid out in the order you want them to be in, go ahead and begin seaming them together. And I'm going to show you how to do just a really quick seam. So I'm taking my color A and I will thread it directly onto my tapestry needle. And I'm going to get a length of yarn that I think is long enough to go through this seam. All right, I got that. And the squares themselves all should have the same number of stitches all the way around. This is why we finished off with the single crochet round, to make it really easy to seam. And as long as you are pairing them up and matching the stitches up the best you can, it should work out all right. So I'm going to join my yarn with the figure 8 here at the beginning. So I just began over here on the right hand side. I go up, come to the corresponding stitch on this side and go up. Pull that through, right? And then I will come back over where I came in on this side, the same space, and pull up there. All this does is it begins our work with the yarn joined together. Now you can join in many different ways, and I have several different videos right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel that talk about crochet joins. I'll make sure I put a link to them right down there in the video notes. But for a quick join, let's just do a little quick kind of whip stitch. So all I'm going to do is, you can see here that the V's of this side match up to the V's of this side. And I'm just going to grab the outside V over here. You see that? And the outside V over there. So I'm just matching them up. Let's see what this looks like. And you can play around with this. As long as the way you join your squares together is consistent throughout, you'll be fine. I'm going to grab the outside V and the outside V. And I'm just going up stitch for stitch, pulling those together, outside and outside. So it's just weaving them together, outside and outside. What this is going to do is it's going to leave the inside part of the stitches opened up and on the opposite side of the work. And so it'll be a really pretty design feature. And what I like about doing this particular seam up is, see how pulling those together, it kind of gives it the look of the V's in general. Like it looks like it's pulled it together. It looks like a knit stitch sort of. And I just think it looks really pretty. So this is just one join you could do. You don't have to use this join. You could, as I said, single crochet them together, slip stitch them together, whip stitch them together, lace up, mattress stitch, whatever you choose to do. Just keep it consistent through all of the squares. And you'll notice I'm just going back and forth all the way up, and I'll do this until I get to the opposite end, so to up here to this point. At which point I will finish off with the figure 8 once again, just to make sure that everything is kept together. And you'll notice I'm making sure that my stitches are all lined up side by side, so I'm not accidentally going off course. I don't want to do that. Let me get to the end of this and I will show you how to finish off with the figure 8 and let you see what the finished piece looks like. So I'm up here to the very end, and I want to go ahead and join this last corner here. I'm going to go through and pull those together. There we are. And then I will finish with a figure 8. So I'm going to pop back over here, and I'm going to go through both loops over here. And I'm going to come over here and go through both loops over here. Pull that up. So everything gets stuck in there. I don't want to make a knot there. There we go. And then I can come back to this side one more time to get my figure 8. Give it a nice pull together. And voila, you can see this join is really pretty on the right side. And my work down here where I started off, all I do is weave in that end, weave in this end up here. And if I flip it around, look how pretty that is. It's just a really pretty join. Now, as it folds, you can see it opens up. But as it lays flat, it looks really pretty. I just think that is just one of those really pretty pieces. You can see that it's joined together. Now you know how to make the motifs, how to weave in your ends, how to seam it together, but what about that fringe? You want to make sure you add the fringe. That really makes the piece. Let me show you how to do that. For the fringe, you want to grab each color of yarn that you used for your motif. So I have each color of yarn right here, and I'm holding them all together, all in my hand. Now I have to decide here, do I want to go ahead and make my lengths of yarn 24 inches as the pattern says, or maybe I want to change it up a little bit? What you can do here is you can decide, okay, I want my fringe maybe to be about that long, okay? So all you would do then is double that. So fold it in half. And then where it's doubled, let me see here. Where it's doubled down here, you will snip that, okay? So I'm gonna snip that. And I know, okay, I want my lengths of yarn this long. Now, before I go ahead and add this one, because I want all of my lengths of yarn to be the same, I would go ahead and measure this out and make my other lengths of yarn this same distance, okay? So you wanna make sure that you're doing this consistently. Now, if you're ready to have it attached after you've done all your fringe, you've got it all ready, you can go ahead and you can take one strand of each color, totally up to you, or you could do 2 strands of each color. This is totally your preference. Take your finished scarf that's already seamed together with the wrong side facing you. Fold your fringe in half, and at the point of the fold, that's where we're going to pull that through. Now on our scarf, we have to decide where we want to add our fringe. And for me, I would say, okay, add a fringe on the outside corners and then maybe in the center, and then fill in the space as needed on either side. You can add as much or as little fringe as you want. It's totally up to you. I'm going to start right here in the center, and I am just going to guesstimate it. I'm going to eyeball it, and I will put my hook right there through that stitch. Okay, so I'm through a stitch. I'll take my hook and I'm going to go through the fold of the fringe, pull that up through my work, and here at this fold of the fringe, I'll open it up, thread the tails through, and then give it a pull. And when I pull it closed, that nice center portion will be folded over all of the fringe, and it will be facing the right side of my work. See that? See the fold over? And this, I have super long fringe. I mean, look, whoa, that is super long fringe. But if that's what you want, you can totally do that, right? That's the cool part about adding fringe to any project. It really customizes your project. Let's take a look at the finished sample. You can see how much fringe is added to this. And you can see it's not super long. And what's great here is that when the fringe was added, once it was all added, it was all laid down flat, and then it was trimmed up to make sure it was nice and even. If you don't want to make it even, you want to make it a little bit more, I don't know, urban rustic and have it a little bit uneven and all over the place, you could leave it as that as well. It's totally up to you. But I love how all 4 colors are in each piece of the fringe here, and it just really adds something a little bit extra to this whole piece. Isn't it pretty? It's so pretty. Did you know there are crocheters that are experienced crocheters that cannot make a granny square? And here you are, a beginner or an intermediate, and not only can you make a granny square, you can make a circle motif and turn it into a granny square and make that into a scarf that everybody's gonna want. I really hope you've enjoyed this video and you've learned something new, whether it's changing colors, making a circle motif into a square motif, seaming squares together, or adding fringe. I hope there's something here for you, and you'll come back for more right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel, where you will find my first videos every month, where I take a brand new knitting and crochet project and teach you how to make it. It's geared towards beginners, but it's perfect for intermediate and advanced knitters and crocheters as well. Make sure that you share with me your finished project. You can click on that link right there where it says Share with Marley over on my Facebook page, just facebook.com/MarleyBird. I love to see all of your work, and I love to see your works in progress. Just so much fun. So make sure you share with me over there. And last but not least, hit subscribe so you're up to date whenever there's a video released, and smash that like button, as my kids say. I will talk to you guys soon. I'm Marley Bird, proud spokesperson for Red Heart Yarns. Bye, guys. Looking for more Marley Bird? Don't worry, I've got you covered. Click right down there and you will find more videos just like this teaching you how to knit or crochet, all brought to you by Red Heart Yarns. Go ahead, click away. Don't be shy. Don't forget to smash that like button.